Welcome, congregation, to another episode of Preaching Profits, the sanctuary where we turn financial gospel into actionable reality and cast out the heresy of bad money habits. I am your host, and today we are turning our eyes toward a financial revolution that has taken the world by storm, yet remains shrouded in mystery: the world of cryptocurrency. Now, there are a lot of false prophets on the internet preaching the gospel of overnight meme, coin millions. That is a dangerous theology. Today, we aren't here to gamble. We are here to understand the foundational shift in how humanity stores and transfers wealth. But before we bring our digital missionary to the pulpit, this sermon is made possible by the partners who keep our signal strong. First, a massive thanks to Diamond Eye Visuals. In a world full of noise, your brand needs to cut through with absolute clarity. Whether you need high-end video production, striking brand media, or visual storytelling that converts, Diamond Eye Visuals brings your creative vision to life with professional perfection. And we are also sponsored by Token Teller, your premier financial companion. In a fast-moving market, you cannot navigate the wilderness blind. Token Teller lets you track your assets, demystify real-time market data, and maintain absolute transparency over your digital ledger. Trust your math and let Token Teller guide your portfolio. Now, let us open the scriptures of the blockchain. Cryptocurrency isn't just about code, it's about financial sovereignty. To help us break down the genesis block of this new asset class, we have a true scholar of the digital ledger in the house. His name is Jay. Jay hasn't just watched the crypto space, he has studied its mechanics, navigated its volatility, and used it to architect a modern financial strategy. We aren't here for quick sound bites or hype today. We are here for a deep dive masterclass. So, Brother Jay, crypto is a fairly new wealth asset. This makes it very volatile, and uncertainty and lack of security comes with investing. What do you say to these doubters?
Correct. So you're right. There really is no security there. But that's kind of indicative of all things that are brand new, right? This is an emerging market. There isn't any regulations for it. They just in 2020 passed the first law ever that applied to cryptocurrency. So, they've never actually seen this kind of stuff really before. So, one of the reasons why we should be investing in it is because, like the internet in the early 90s, if you were in that game, then when it hit in 2000, you were already at the forefront of everything. You know what I'm saying? And so this is kind of a similar situation. Now, because the technology is so complex and difficult to understand, it takes longer for them to, bring this into the forefront or into mainstream. So that's why it's taking so long. Obviously Bitcoin started in '09, so it kind of takes, it takes some time, right? But at the same time, we're seeing, its growth. And if you put your money in it now, before, the major, JP Morgans, your Chases, when the old financial investors start moving into this new market, it's just going to push everything up.
Now, congregation, we cannot preach financial sovereignty without addressing the rulers of the old system. When you look out into the financial wilderness, the legacy gatekeepers are terrified of what the digital ledger represents. Jay, for years we have listened to the high priest of Wall Street himself, Jamie Dimon, the head of JP Morgan Chase, step up to his own public pulpit and decry cryptocurrency. He has repeatedly warned the public not to touch Bitcoin, calling it a fraud, comparing it to a pet rock, and trying to convince everyday people that they are guaranteed to lose their hard-earned money if they invest. Yet, behind closed doors, his own megabank has been building private blockchain network and opening the door for its wealthiest clients to buy into Bitcoin ETFs. Break this down for the congregation. What is the real motive behind these old guard titans trying to scare regular investors away from the digital frontier? Walk us through why Wall Street is so determined to control the narrative around your financial sovereignty and how a beginner should filter through that legacy noise.
So the banks are tied into the central banking system, right? The Federal Reserve system, right? So obviously they are incentivized to continue that system. Okay. The entire purpose of, well, not entire purpose, but a purpose of cryptocurrency is the fact that you're in complete control of everything that you do. There is no middleman, which the bank is. There is no, third party intermediary who's going, that you have to move your funds through, or that you have to transact through, so that they obviously are going to lose that kind of money. If you don't have to put your money in a bank, if you don't have to put your money in escrow to buy a house, if you don't have to pay insurances out, you could just place it in a placeholder on a blockchain. That puts all those companies out of business. So of course he's going to tell you, hey, don't put your money over there, come on over here. But those who know, they know that system's dying out, and we need to move into something that's more sustainable. And for third world countries, they're seeing, the stability in this, because their inflation rates hit all the time. Every 2 or 3 years, they're going through high inflation, hyperinflation, deflation. But now they're getting some stability because they can put it in the crypto and it can hold its value, while universally, globally, my Bitcoin, my Ethereum, my whatever I bought, it's holding more of its value than what my dollar is in that wave, in that cycle. So it helps you move your money around so that you can hold your wealth.
When the average person hears the word crypto, their mind doesn't instantly jump to financial sovereignty. It jumps to fear. They think about the massive headline grabbing collapses like FTX, the anonymous hackers draining digital wallets, and the endless sea of rug pulls and online scams designed to strip everyday people of their life savings. This deep seated fear of being cheated or having their digital wealth stolen keeps millions of honest people from ever stepping foot into this space. Break this down for the congregation from the pulpit. How does a beginner separate the true, foundational math of blockchain from the smoke and mirrors of the scammers? Walk us through the essential rules of digital security, how you protect your own assets from being stolen, and how we can cast out the spirit of fear with actual financial literacy.
So again, because there is no FDIC, because there is no SEC and no licenses and all that stuff, there are scammers out there. I'm not going that this is the Wild Wild West. This is what it is. There are people who are putting up stuff just so they can get some money in, and then they'll close up shop, take the money and go. But again, that's why, this, you have to know what you're doing. And that's why I said, there is no third party intermediary. There is no bank that's going to come and help you find your finances if somebody on the other side did something wrong to you. So you need to build these relationships. You need to do your own research. You need to know who you're doing business with. You know what I'm saying? And don't let anybody have your private keys. Obviously, the public key anybody can see, but your private key needs to be yours, as well as your seed, your phrase, or whatever sequence they have that can bring up your old wallet's information. If you lose that, or if that's given to somebody and they take advantage of that, there is nobody to save you. So in those instances, yes, there's been people that have had issues. On another note, though, it's because of the blockchain, everything can be seen, right? It's very open. So it's open source. So I can go on to, some of these Block Explorer websites, and I can see the actual transactions that are going on, second by second as they're going on. And I can say, okay, this is my transaction. How long is it going to take to get to him? Did it get to him? I can see all of it. My mind thinks, when you see things like the Colonial Pipeline, how it got hacked or whatever, and they had to pay in Bitcoin. Well, if I was a person who was doing a ransom attack, would I really want you to pay me in money that can be tracked globally? No, I wouldn't. So chances are, in my mind, I think that some of these scams are also part of the plot. If everybody just saw it to be what it was, then we'd all just jump into it, and all of a sudden the dollar would crash and all these other entities would fall, and they can't have these kind of things happen. So they're kind of slowly phasing it in so they can still kind of manipulate it and stay on top of it.
Jay, the old guard wants us to believe that a standard 401k, a mutual fund, or an index fund yielding 7 to 8% a year is the ultimate pinnacle of financial stewardship. But when you factor in rampant inflation, corporate manipulation, and a centralized banking system that prints money out of thin air, those traditional investments start looking less like a refuge and more like a slow burning trap. We are witnessing an exodus. Forward thinking investors are actively moving their capital away from Wall Street and transitioning it into the digital ledger of cryptocurrency. Preach to the congregation on this shift, brother. Why should someone listening right now break free from the traditional stock market comfort zone and allocate their hard earned wealth into crypto? Walk us through the unique mathematical advantage, the true meaning of asset ownership, and how this transition rewrites the timeline for financial freedom.
Yeah, first thing I would tell anybody, if you have money in the stock market already, or if you already have investments, I wouldn't liquidate anything and throw it into crypto. I'm not, that's not what I'm advocating for. But, this is just another asset class that is now opening up. So imagine, you can invest in commodities, like precious metals, uranium, oil, gas, stuff like that, right? You can invest that way. You can invest in crypto. You can invest in stock market. You can invest in real estate. So this is just another asset class now that you can invest into. The benefit of it, though, is that we know for a fact that it's an emerging thing, that it's going to become the global economy in the near future. So we're at a point where, if you want to get in now, this is getting into IBM, this is getting into Microsoft, Google, Amazon before they were who they were in 2000 when they hit. This is your opportunity to get in at the ground floor on some of these big businesses. If you look at a company like Ethereum or a coin, a blockchain like Ethereum, they've laid the groundwork so that an entire ecosystem has been built on top of them now. So if obviously, I'm not speculating, but we already know that the value of Ethereum is going to go up over time just because of the ecosystems and economies that have been built on top of it. And as those begin to gain in their profits and in their market value, Ethereum's just going to go up in value because of the value that it was able to create through those other entities. So this is, it's kind of a multi-layered thing, but you got to get in at the ground floor and do your research so you know what you're getting into, because you can, a lot of people lost money, in the 2000 bust, the tech bust. So it works both ways.
Now, congregation, we must put on our armor of discernment. In this house, we do not follow blind faith and we do not bow down to false idols. If we look out into the digital wilderness right now, a lot of what we see doesn't look like financial salvation. It looks like absolute madness. Jay, let's strip away the hype and speak plain truth from the pulpit. To the sober observer, the entire crypto market looks less like a secure financial system and more like the building of a modern golden calf. It seems to be driven entirely by intoxicating hype, celebrity tweets, and a foundation of pure speculation. People are pouring their hard earned money into digital strings of code that have no physical tangibles, no factories, no cash flow, and no underlying corporate earnings. It looks like the ultimate theater of foolishness, a dangerous game of musical chairs where the last person holding the bag loses everything. Break this down for the skeptics in our congregation, brother. Why should a serious investor allocate their capital into crypto when it feels so detached from real world tangibles? Walk us through the hidden architecture beneath the noise. Prove to us why this is a true, enduring monetary system rather than just a digital house of cards built on the foundations of foolishness.
You really have to, again, know your project, right? So I'm not going to knock anything, but every project has a community behind it. And so you're going to hear good news about every single project that comes out because it has its own community. So just because somebody's saying that it's good doesn't necessarily mean that it's good, right? So they might be invested in it and need you to invest in it so that they can make that product's value go up so that they can get their money. So again, do your own research because you don't know what people's incentives are for why they're telling you this is good, right? Why this became a meme and everybody became social media hot about it, You don't know why that is. Most people didn't read the white paper. Dogecoin doesn't even have a white paper. So is it really a project? Or, even the owners who started it thought it was a joke and don't own any of it right now. So is it really something that I want to put my money in? I invest in crypto. I don't put it in that. But, some people have, I'm not going to tell them otherwise. That's their business. I personally am not looking at this as a gambling thing or as a speculation. I'm looking at this more of the ground floor of a new economy and picking the right winners now, like the Googles, like the, early day, eBays and, PayPal. And, you got to get them before they start, and this is the time when you're seeing them grow that you can get into them. But you have to do the research. You have to read the white papers, which is basically what the blockchain or the entity puts out to the market so that they know what what it is that blockchain is doing or what value they add. And they'll lay out in there what all the protocols and rules are on the blockchain, how much there is available, all that kind of stuff. You need to know that stuff. Most of these coins, if they have an infinite supply, then that's not a great value per se than something that has a finite supply like Bitcoin, which is why they're saying it can be a store of value, because over time, once it caps off, it's gonna go up. There's no more, so it's gonna go up. It has no choice but to go up, right? That's the economic principles right there. You can't deny that. So those kind of things happen, but again, just do your research and make sure you're getting into the right ones and not just following hype, because again, they all have their own community and they all, have a reason behind why they're telling you that coin is going to be the most successful or whatever. So you don't always have to necessarily believe them. You have to do your own work. So there's multiple ways that it scales. Obviously that it's going to just grow over time as the market, it becomes more adopted. But then also, there's day trading or Forex trading on there, day trading on there. There's different ways, you can get in the DeFi and begin lending money. You can stake and make interest on your money. There's many different ways that you can, turn this into a profit stream, which is another reason why, like I said, this is an asset class. This is its own entity amongst itself, right? You can get into this and, trade between different cryptos. You can, get on different projects. Some of them, like some of these, we're getting into the metaverse and all that with Facebook, how they just changed to Meta and they're getting into the metaverse. There's already cryptocurrencies that were doing that kind of stuff, that were exchanging in the metaverse or in their own form of a metaverse, right? So those cryptos, obviously are going up in value now that Facebook has done what they're doing. Facebook, we know, has a cryptocurrency coming out as well, right? They're going to use that coin on their metaverse in order to interact, in order to buy things. Yeah. So this is where this is going, regardless of what people want to believe. This is what it's here. So you get your money and put it in so that you can be a part of this. Otherwise, they're going to leave you. Just like the tech game took off. If you didn't get in the tech game, you're out. And don't be mad that Tesla did what they did. They started off at $100 a share too. But you didn't jump in that early. You thought that it was a scam, right? And then they did what they did. And it's the same kind of situation here, right? So it's like, get on it, do your research so that you know which one you're getting on, but get in the game. Get in any game, and once you get in it, listen, I've lost money too. But again, this is a new thing. If you don't put any money in that you can't lose, first of all, and then once you get in the game, move it around and figure it out. Don't move everything at one time, because if you lose it, it's gone. So send little pieces and figure it out, and just play with the game. Because again, in 10 years from now, you're going to be happy that you started playing with it now than having to learn it when it's now a part of what you have to do. You don't want cryptocurrency to be on the job training for you. This is definitely something you want to learn beforehand. Just like, you don't want to, this is the stuff you really want to be ahead of, because otherwise it's going to take over you and you're going to be following whatever's given.
And that congregation brings today's digital sermon to a close. A massive thank you to our brother Jay for stepping up to the pulpit and delivering absolute truth on the blockchain. No hype, no false prophecies, just pure, unvarnished financial literacy for the modern era. Before you step back into the marketplace, let's give one final thanks to the partners who make this ministry possible. This episode was brought to you by Diamond Eye Visuals. If you are ready to stop blending in and start standing out, let Diamond Eye Visuals elevate your brand with world-class video production and media creation. Bring your vision to absolute clarity today and buy Token Teller, your premier financial companion. In a world of decentralized finance and fast moving markets, do not wander the wilderness alone. Use Token Teller to track your assets, master your market data, and maintain ultimate transparency over your digital and traditional ledgers. If today's message opened your eyes, do not keep the blessings to yourself. Share this sermon with someone who needs to understand the future of money. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe so you never miss a week of financial gospel. Go forth, secure your private keys, protect your capital, and keep preaching profits. Finance is always great, but we must not forget the most profitable returns come from our investments in people. Be fruitful and multiply. Always remember to keep the Most High first. We'll see you next week. Amen.